You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Gene. Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AFTERBUZZ TV's Falling Skies After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Falling Skies After Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Falling Skies, the After Show, Season 3, the penultimate episode, Journey to Xilbalba. I didn't pronounce it.
You said it right.
I hope I did.
I think you said it right.
You notice how most people, if they don't know how to say something, they'll be like, and I'm here with Phil Svitek. Who? Phil Svitek. And co-host, Nando Velasquez.
Thanks. Phil Svitek and Nando Velasquez.
Excellent. Yes, we are here recapping what is a great episode. Again, we're a little bit more upbeat than perhaps the episode warrants, because it is a sad, sad episode. But at the end of the day, it's all about hope.
But there's some positive. Yeah, there's some positives.
We end on a good note.
Yeah,
yes, we do.
We do.
So let's start right off the bat, right? So last episode, it's like, okay, I believe it's Matt who says, you know what, my dad got home once, and he got home twice. He can get back again.
Yeah.
And he's back.
And he gets back.
On a boat.
Well, yeah, I guess he knows it's Noah Wiley. You can't kill him off.
No, you can't. And he hands the boat over to Pope.
Here
you go.
What a way to arrive. He arrives by boat all the way from the Boston area, down to
Boston Harbor.
Boston Harbor. he finds a boat, and Pope finds him, and Pope greets him. Again, I mentioned this last week with the other the family coming down, and like no one really questioned if they had bugs or not. They just kind of just let him in. Pope kind of did the same thing, more or less, but he explains why later.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, this relationship between them.
Well, I know you wanted to talk about the bromance between Weaver and Tom. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, no, here's the thing. Okay, so it's great that Tom's returned. Again, here's another case, just like last week, where someone comes in and it's pretty much arms wide open. The whole town pretty much receives him. After Tom reveals that he thinks it would be a smart idea to go for Boston, to shoot the Vom weapon into Boston. We found out what city. He determined a city because even though he was being bombarded by the dream analysis last week with Karen trying to get it out of him by Inception style, he just realizes he wants revenge on Karen, and he figures that they won't expect Boston, and that's where she is anyway, so that would be the best place to hit. But of course, Tom's the one who brings it up. I don't even think Weaver brings it up. Weaver's like, I trust you, and Tom's like, aren't you worried that I might have a bug in me?
No, well, it's Weaver who says there's nothing I like more. And there was supposed to be perhaps more to that sentence.
There was hesitation, I guess, yeah. And then Tom brings it up. He brings up the elephant in the room. Finally, somebody brings it up, but it has to be Tom bringing it up. And even when Tom brings it up, Weaver's like, and Tom's like, if I do anything that's out of the ordinary, if I do anything that looks like I'm going to go against you guys, I want you to put a bullet in me. And Weaver's like, I can't put a bullet in you. It's just like,
you're my buddy.
I'm just like, I get it. Okay, the third mass, our family. I get it. There comes a point where it's like, I just felt like that. It was just something a little too, just a little too much bromance going on there. It's
fair enough. Certainly Pope didn't give him any bromance. He's like, he goes up to him like, hey, you know what? Weaver's not going to shoot me.
Yeah.
So if anything happens,
you
get to shoot me.
They have their own love-hate relationship, so I think they just love to hate each other. But it's so funny to see how Tom trusts Pope to shoot him like that. So it's all good. I'm just saying that it's just weird knowing, especially after what we see with the mole, and of course even at the end of this episode where they all realize that anybody could get an eye worm. Yeah. That they're just so willing to accept family members coming back from week month-long trips to on emissions. So,
that is a good point, and we'll certainly talk about Lourdes at greater length.
yeah.
But Tom being back, it's interesting, Matt's note of how changed he is.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the whole kind of struggle today was love and hate and things like that, and Matt didn't seem to like the shift in Tom.
Yeah.
Because he didn't really break it tactfully. He said, "Did you see Ann and Lexi?" No. And I was like, "Oh, okay, he's going to hide it from the kids and give them hope." And he's like, "But they're dead."
Yeah.
Are you sure? They're dead.
Well, I still don't think they're dead, but we'll talk about Lourdes later, but the fact that she knew some information makes me question now whether or not
they're dead.
Whether or not I still believe that. Yeah.
I think they could be alive. I mean, be interesting. It would be an interesting twist, and finally reunite the family.
Yeah.
Make it whole again. I mean, so we'll see. But certainly, again, young Matt is not taking it too easy.
Well, also there's that scene with Matt in the ducts in the sewers with Ben, where he pretty much says, "Well, it's okay if they're all dead. It's okay if everyone that's been buried underneath is dead," and so he's getting to be very cynical.
He's too young to be cynical. But
even in this world, he's too young to be cynical.
I think so. I
Yeah.
mean, he certainly is. And but before we move on to the big event of tonight's episode, which was the explosion. Explosions, yes. Let me say, I'm sure most of you already know, but in case you don't, and in case you haven't, download Adventure Serial Buddies, but more importantly, because I know a lot of you guys have, tell a friend to download that movie. It's a very good movie, and you're a shitty friend if you don't. And I'll leave it at that.
Come on, you got to know, if you have at least 12 friends, somebody's birthday is coming up this month, right?
That's right.
There you go.
And it pretty much costs $5.
Yeah.
That's all it really costs. Adventure Serial Buddies, the first serial killer comedy of all time. Starring amazing people. Check out the trailer. Check out the movie. Adventure Serial Buddies. SerialBuddies.com. Out now as we speak. All right. Big explosion. At first, I didn't think it was that big. It was like it just kind of took Pope and.
Well, that first one, because there were two different explosions. I guess there was an explosion and then the collapse.
Yes.
But that explosion, it was kind of a quiet explosion. It just kind of like interrupted Pope and Tom. Conversation. I mean, they got thrown away. They got thrown out of the trailer, but still.
But then we cut to commercial. We come back from commercial, and it's like, what? Are we in a desert? Like, where are we? And they're looking for. So it was. I wasn't expecting to see what I saw.
Well, the Volm had not really been living in the town, partly because of some of the opinions of people like Pope, who still don't trust the Volm. And in my opinion, also partly because they just didn't have the budget to have that many Volm costumes, so it's just better to keep them kind of separate and have Cochise as the main Volm in the show. But so I guess the explosion happened nearby, and they went to investigate and discovered that just about all the Volm seemed to be dead, and except for Cochise.
Very convenient.
Very convenient, and of course because the Volm are creating this weapon. And they seem to be the only ones who know how to operate it because they've been the only ones building it. This does put a big, crink in the plan to destroy the grid, before everybody dies in 3 months.
And it's interesting. Right before that, they had, it should be noted that Cochise and Tom had their talk of, that. We need to keep moving forward. We can't let loss break us and things like that, And it's so interesting 5 minutes later that it's, Cochise who's facing that kind of problem.
Yeah.
That same predicament.
Well, it was a lot that he said. I kind of, what I should have played it back because I really wanted to write down a lot of that stuff, but it was a lot of, I think it was like fate. It was a lot of talk about fate and just how fate is a strange thing. That's what I wrote. And
fate is a strange. He was saying fate is a strange thing. It can bring you, basically, it can bring you joy when you least inspect it, least need it or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it also can be it can be bad because it can bring you tragedy when you're least prepared for it.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that. But yeah, there was a lot of foreshadowing in that conversation, and then of course, Cochise talking about his brother and him having an argument before his brother passed away, and him regretting that, and all sorts of stuff there.
Yeah.
So that I thought was really, really interesting.
And then, so he's the only one alive, and luckily he can regenerate. No, but that's,
It does make sense considering he went through such a major plane accident a couple of episodes ago with the president and was able to shield the president and still survive.
Yeah.
So President Hathaway.
That does make a lot of sense, and so that sets it up right off the bat, and just classic. But obviously by now we know who the mole is as an audience.
As an audience, yeah.
As an audience, and classic kind of like Hitchcock of like. And he need not be disturbed. Cue Lourdes being like, okay, got it. But yeah, I mean, he's the last surviving Volm, and he's the key. He says later on that he doesn't know the technology of it. He doesn't know how to engineer it.
Yeah.
But again, he still represents hope.
Mm-hmm.
So by him being alive, the weapon is still usable.
Well, yeah, somewhat usable. Although he talked at the end of the episode about his engineers being the ones who knew how to really operate the machinery.
But at least the basics of it'd be like, okay, it'd be like you saying, Phil, hey, how does a car work? Especially now with cars basically being big computers. I might not know all the specifics, but I can tell you the overall idea. And as later they say, hey, what, Kadar can take it as a challenge. Then again, Kadar might be able to figure out the specifics of that.
Yeah. But
the basic idea remains the same, and as long as Cochise understands that, I think he can coach someone through it.
Well, we'll get to see. We'll get to see next. Well, we saw some clips. It looks like they do get to figure something out. So
yeah, whether
they put the Vom weapon in reverse. Like some people might do with a car with a comical thing, or whether it goes forward. Yeah, we'll see. They'll get that car to go or not.
What else was I going to say about the weapon? I forget.
Well, the weapon's buried, so they still have to dig it out.
Yes,
if
they
that's
do.
What.
Yeah. Speaking of that, they said rarely do we get to kind of mourn the losses of the ones we've lost, and Liberty Tree. Yeah. Perhaps helped a little bit, but the Volm certainly has not had that, and especially not here. They keep Cochise keeps referring to it as the land that's not theirs.
Yeah.
And so it was nice for Tom to say, hey, you know what, we're gonna do this properly, and then we're gonna dig.
Yeah, that was pretty honorable and nice about Tom. I mean, he has his own friendship with Cochise. They seem to have a very kindred bond together. That they seem to share, and they seem to really trust each other. It was pretty apparent at the end of this episode, yeah.
Also, do you want to talk about how Marina basically has no power in any of this? And she's like, hey, if you just want your old job back, please take it.
We finally, I think everyone's finally figured out, even before the Lourdes thing, that it's probably not Marina. And yet she seems pretty powerless in this episode. That's true. And you know what? She just happens to be blinded more or less by the explosion, or not the explosion, but the
second explosion.
The second explosion, which I thought was pretty apropos for her. She seems to be kind of blind to a lot of things. So
because no one's given her. Again, I think no one's given her anything.
Yeah.
And she asked Tom, like, hey, can you tell me what's going on? He's like, hey, I gave some intel. What they do with it is their business. And like, okay, can you at least tell me what you told them so I can kind of maybe know what they might be doing?
But the thing is, now that the mole has been revealed and taken into custody, I guess, and I guess they're gonna treat Lourdes, so she'll be back to normal again. At least now, with that gone, they'll probably be in more of a position to trust Marina, as the president right now for Charleston. So
perhaps
she'll probably have a bigger role to play next week, and depending on what happens next week, next season. But yeah, I mean, that's the position where she's in right now because of this mole, and now that the mole's gone, we'll see what happens with her.
I thought it was interesting. We'll talk about the second explosion in a moment, but again, this whole idea of hope and things like that, and hope obviously is improbable, some may say. Certainly Kadar, and when they finally get, I love when Tom just goes and blasts at the rig that they built.
Yeah.
And Kadar comes down. He's like, it just goes to show that low probability things do happen. So it reminded me. It's great because sometimes logic doesn't enter into these kind of things, and they're talking about Cochise earlier was talking about how the human spirit is the greatest weapon of all, etc. Right? So again, the whole notion of hope. It just reminded me of David Hume's saying, like, no matter how many times I drop a rock, I still don't know if it's going to fall down to the ground. Could float up.
I've never heard that.
Really?
I've never heard that.
Hume teaches us.
Really?
Okay. But going back to the
I'm gonna start dropping lots of rocks now.
I know. But going back to the Vuln weapon, like, you know what? Well, maybe we don't even need to build it anymore. Maybe you just gotta believe. No, I'm not being that hokey, but what I mean. It gives them the power to operate.
Cochise said the human spirit is the biggest weapon that the human race has.
Yeah.
On Earth. So I mean, they've put a lot of emphasis on hope, on the human spirit.
Yeah.
So. And
not breaking and things like that. So so speaking of that, second explosion, Lourdes this time.
We get to see that alien contraption. It's like another organic
It's
creature.
like a tree.
Yeah, it was
that then explodes.
I don't know if it was explodes as opposed to like choking, like just tearing apart the infrastructure and making it collapse, and trapping the group. I guess the main group into 3 positions, 3 spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about Hal and?
Oh boy. Yeah.
Let's talk about them. Which, by the way, they have a funny scene when they're getting the ammo and like, okay, east side, west side, whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, let's stop what we're doing and just talk. Even though what we're doing is really important.
They're having a bit of a lovers quarrel while they're losing air.
What happened to the secretary? She just died.
To the secretary.
That was there, right? Because Hal comes in.
Yeah.
He kind of signs in or whatever, and then they're having the
I guess she's dead. I mean, that's the one thing about the about that whole collapse too. It's like they claim there were a lot of people dead, but none of the major characters obviously were affected. I guess the other than Marina getting blinded and some people being a little hurt, a little bruised, and Hal and Maggie being in that room where they were losing air, nobody pertinent to the cast really was in any danger at all. So yeah, so I'm guessing she died.
Yes, she did, along with apparently 100 other people.
A lot of people that that aren't essential to the story.
But yeah, it was obviously Maggie is still mad about the fact that Hal left on this journey to find his family.
Yeah.
And I get her point. She just wants to be part of the family.
Well, I mean, I think Maggie from her first season, she was a bit of an outsider, even amongst Pope's crew when she was with Pope's crew and how she was treated by them. So for her, Hal's been the biggest connection to anything, and for him to leave, and I mean, he even said I had to go because it was family. I think that really was a biting remark to Maggie, because she's not, and she's still, and even with their relationship, we've seen it a little bit already, when Hal had the eye worm, is that she still is being somewhat compared to Karen, who is an evil alien bitch. So, alien implanted bitch. So, she still is a little bit on the outside. So I think, yeah, she does absolutely has a point as to being left behind.
And I like her idea of, she just wants a choice. No matter what it may bring, she wants a choice, and it's got to be her choice.
Yeah, she wants power.
If it means that, and you could say that choice is a human thing.
Yeah.
And that's part of the human spirit, is that we're given a choice to do what we want ultimately.
She's been fighting for having to make her own decisions. As last week, she was insisting on being on the front line for the attack when Weaver was trying to keep her back, and then he realized that she saved his life by keeping him busy before he walked into the room where the explosion last week happened. So she's all about. I mean, she's a very strong character. I love her. Plus, she's gorgeous. Can't escape that. Sorry, I just can't. I mean, Sarah Carter is beautiful. All right, I'm done now with that. But but you know, her character, she's very resourceful. She's a great fighter. She's scrappy. She's had to survive on her own. So this is a person who doesn't want to be put on the sideline. She wants to make decisions.
She's smart, you know. As Hal is trying to dig his way through and just being stubborn, she says like, "Hey, dumbass, you're taking up all the air. You're not gonna get anywhere."
Yeah.
You know, it could have come back to haunt them. You know, had Hal not been so aggressive, maybe it would save a little bit.
I find it funny that in the end, all they did do was open up that pipe to get air, and they were like, she was like banging on that pipe the whole time and didn't even open. Well, I guess she couldn't open it right away, and I guess they got a second. They got like some adrenaline pumping when they realized that Ben was below.
I believe it. I mean, hey, it happens all the time. No, it does. I mean, you know what? I'm sure if Nando's life was videotaped, I could find a part of your life where you were trying to open something or whatever and it just wasn't working, and 2 days later you come back to it and it's like, oh, that was easy. So don't even go there.
Okay.
Because I will find it. But yeah, I'm glad that they've kind of made up, and now, you know, their relationship, I think, is finally back on good terms. So
okay.
But it's also interesting as you know, we'll talk about Lourdes more at length, but, you know, just in terms of Hal, as they're walking out, like, hey, you know, I've known her for the longest time. You know, if they get this thing out of her, are people going to forgive her for all the people that she's killed? Because they certainly haven't forgiven me. Yeah,
I mean, that is a really good point. We haven't really seen much of any, other than Pope in the beginning. After Hal was revealed as having an eye worm, we haven't really seen too much of that sentiment. But
that's because he was gone.
Well, because he was gone. But now that Lourdes, that's true. Now that he was gone, but Lourdes killed President Hathaway. Lourdes killed. Lourdes killed that. She destroyed radios. She destroyed equipment. She killed multiple armies. Multiple big people, and she is responsible for killing the Vol and maybe not making that weapon operable.
Yeah.
So I don't think just giving her that medicine or whatever you want to call that very aggressive antidote to get rid of the eye worm is really going to, she's going to wake up and realize that there are going to be a lot of people pissed off at her, even though it's not really her fault. So it'll be interesting to see how she relates to, I'm guessing Hal and her will definitely have a, I don't want to say relationship because that sounds weird, but they will have a connection.
Speaking of connections, interestingly enough, okay, so the explosion happens, and I love Tom's and Lourdes' talk together. You know, where basically Lourdes is apologizing.
Yeah,
I thought it was interesting at the time. I didn't understand it, but obviously it was a plant that later paid off because Tom picked up on it.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. You know, you could see how, like, from Tom's perspective at the time, oh, nice Lourdes. You know, what was your thoughts on that whole?
Well, you know, it obviously sounded like she was admitting guilt without admitting it.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if I guess everybody knew that Alexis and Anne was dead. So I was even wondering when she said it originally, like, is that a little too revealing? Because I figured it'd be something like that, where Tom would catch it. She gave too much information. So that was really interesting. What's also interesting too, and I don't know if this is maybe because Karen doesn't care about the mole, that Lourdes was involved in her own explosion. She got injured from from that second collapse.
It was going to be interesting to me how much damage she took.
Yeah.
You know, whether it was self-sacrificial or just collateral damage or whatever it may be.
And I don't think it was purposeful to be placed next to Cochise. I think that was just like serendipitous for her that she got placed next to Cochise.
I think that was very serendipitous, but the fact that she got hurt at all,
yeah,
you know, was again interesting to me.
Well, it just goes to show. I mean, the mole is expendable to Karen.
Oh,
so
absolutely,
it's more about destroying the Vuln weapon and destroying the human spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, they had nice little teases of, okay, is Laura's going to get caught? Because, earlier on, Weaver kind of walked by her and says, hey, there's a lot of people that need your help. You better get to it. She's like, okay. I go. So, yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Okay, so through all of this, again, there's basically no one. There's a lot of damage, and Tom, who they still don't really trust, and yet trust, he's like, okay, I'll do it. So the two of them set off to try to find the entrances, and although they don't get that because they need a big ass forklift, they find Kadar.
Just rummaging in the ducts.
Yeah.
Just foraging in there.
But that worked out well, and again, it's still fun. It is really funny to me how they trust him, but they don't trust him.
Kadar?
No, Tom.
Oh, Tom. Yeah, of course. Sorry. Yeah, but the way they trust him and they don't trust him, it's like make up your minds. Or I just feel like it's too wishy-washy at times with him. But
well,
I guess he's been there before, so it just would be retreading. Story-wise, I'm sure the writers are probably thinking about it, and they realize, look, there's been so many times where he's been compromised, and he's come back, and Pope especially is the first one to point fingers and go, to say, well, where's he stand? What's going on with him? So I guess they figured they could touch upon it without really hammering it again, because it doesn't move the story forward at this point.
By the way, I loved Kadar's comedic relief. I'll need this, and peanut butter.
And peanut butter. And then Tom says, "Get in the peanut butter first."
Is that like a big thing? Do they have peanut butter? Is that later like?
Well, I would think that it holds up pretty well in post-apocalyptic futures. You put them in put them in jars, and yeah.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
I just didn't realize that.
Maybe they didn't say what brand it was. So I don't think they got a promotion out of it. So.
Anyway, so I think he got his peanut butter from what it seemed like.
He seemed pretty happy. A happy Kadar. He seemed fairly happy. I think he got his peanut butter.
And then it's discovered that there's a crack in the foundation.
Yeah. So.
You think that's metaphorical of what's going on?
Ooh. I didn't really think of it that way, but
of course you didn't.
I didn't. Look at you, Phil, looking in there.
It's because I'm artsier than you.
Yeah, I guess there is a crack in the foundation. Yeah, metaphorically. And then of course, once the mole was revealed, then the crack. Then the fact that Tom was able to blast through the crack without even caring if it would end up.
Because his hatred fueled him.
His hatred fueled him,
as he said,
to get through, despite the crack. So wow, there's a big metaphor there. Wow, you are artsier than me. You totally are.
I've been trying to tell you your whole life. I thought it was so brilliant. Okay, so they're looking at this, right? And that's how actually this whole Lord's thing happened. Was they're looking at it and like, we're back to the start again.
We're back where we started.
Yeah. And so that's how Tom put 2 and 2 together. He's like, okay, Lord, just come with me.
That was an interesting way to do it. Yeah.
And you have our man on the ground, the other way, and he pulls the gun on her, and yeah. Now she's away.
Really smooth way to get her by having Anthony feign an injury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did it.
And they saved Cochise just in the nick of time.
I mean, I don't know what she did. It seemed like she was gonna put a key. I don't know. She was gonna stab.
It was some kind of weird blade, but I guess some alien blade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Cochise is alive. Everything's good. Lourdes is, she's the mole, so it's all good. You want to dissect the ending scene further? On the lakeside, you got the smoke.
Well,
one of the
I feel like I kind of do, but I also feel like there's something. Well, you know what? Here's what I think.
Whatever you think.
I feel like it might be a prediction. That's why I wanted to save it, maybe. But the little lakeside thing is really, really, really nice. But again, it was. I don't know. I just feel like there's a little bit too much trust going on right now between Cochise and Tom, and something's gonna change.
Okay.
if that makes any sense.
Well, speaking of that, let's head into predictions.
Let's go straight into it. Yeah.
We'll argue about this.
Okay.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
All right. I don't think you could do that. It's too, you know what I mean? Everything's kind of built up to this, and Coach Cheese has always been kind of sincere.
Yeah.
You know, especially now, you know, there's such a bond there. But we did see possible other films.
Yeah.
And they might not be as good.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what was making me think that. Seeing and apologies to anyone who sometimes there's an occasional person who doesn't like looking at scenes from next week, but we did get to see.
Don't listen to predictions.
Don't listen to predictions then, because we're going to use that footage right now to talk about it. It seems to be even though the Volm are apparently dead, we see more than one Volm in the in scenes for next week. Which is probably a ship that's probably over the grid, which would mean that the grid gets destroyed and the Volm land. So the Volm ship lands. So obviously it seems like whatever Cochise's plans or thoughts are, the human race and of Tom, he does not, the rest of the Volm perhaps do not share his thoughts, which, you know what? If you think about it, Tom's thoughts about the Volm aren't really shared with a lot of the other people in Charleston. So it's very possible it could be the other way around as well.
You know, and we're gonna see Karen, things like that. So it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm excited for the season finale. You know, we have to meet Karen face to face. There has to be battle royale.
One more battle of Karen.
I mean, Hal wants to take her down. We know Maggie wants to kick her ass.
And is Alexis and Ann dead? I still think she's not. But what I was going to say about Lourdes is the fact that Lourdes was talking about it makes me feel, and if she knew that she died in Boston, makes me think that maybe they are dead. If Lourdes said that.
And then we'd have a nice family reunion at the end of all of this.
I hope so. Well, I hope they're not dead, but it gives some doubt to me.
Well, it's going to be interesting. All I know is Weaver is having dinner with his daughter as we speak. Congratulations to Weaver.
But he's been thinking about Tom the whole time.
Yes. And on that note, we thank you. In the meantime, you can follow Nando at
Nando Vel. And also on Instagram at Nando Vel. VEL. Yeah.
Nando has a lot of great pictures of
stuff.
God knows what.
Who knows what.
Check it out, because you'll find out.
I'm gonna have to take more pictures. Oh no.
Anyway, thank you guys for listening. Rate, comment, let us know how we're doing, but more importantly, share some theories with us. We love reading them. We don't always bring them into the conversation, but we do definitely read them, and they are definitely interesting. But until next week, follow us here at AfterBuzz TV, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that fun stuff. Bye.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.